we're live with Brent W. Peterson. Not to be confused with any other Brent Petersons.
There's like 400 Petersons in the world, so 400,000 in Minnesota.
Oh, no, there's not. Are you
there's
serious?
A lot. Yeah, I think it's the
You're
second. It's the second most common name. I think Anderson is the most common name in Minnesota. I don't know. You can Google it.
Got it.
Yeah,
Google it. If you haven't Googled that already, I don't really know what you're doing with your life. I mean, these are the things you need to find out. So my wife is just getting home. I'm in my car in the garage, if you haven't noticed.
Yeah, you look great.
And thanks, man. You look fantastic yourself.
So I'm going to have to try this whole car thing. You should be driving. I think that'd be better.
Well, yeah, there's some challenges. There's some legalities to work your way around, if you're driving. But yeah, this is the new thing. Podcast in the car is it's taking the world by storm. So, you should look into it. It's a big deal. It's all the rage. All the kids are doing it. It's the only way to go. It's the only way to do it.
I could tell. Yeah, so I am in a business group called EO, and I see you're waving to your wife as she's either pulling in or pulling out. She's like, "What is he doing?" So I'm in a business group. Pre-pandemic, right. I joined a conference with one of the some super speaker. I won't mention any names, and he joined from Walt Disneyland or something like that. Outside of he was going to get onto a roller coaster, but literally this was a keynote that we had scheduled, or I didn't schedule it, but the organization had scheduled, and he joined with his camera and joined via Zoom, and it was not great.
From a roller coaster?
From outside of a roller coaster, like in the line at Walt Disneyland or something like that. And
Got it.
It was a tough presentation to watch.
Right.
As he stood there in a line of people. Be better now because nobody'd be standing there, right?
Yes, it would be better now.
Yeah.
See, here's the great thing about the car in the garage is that I got Wi-Fi. I got great Wi-Fi, so that's not an issue. I've got good connectivity, great soundproofing, right?
Oh yeah, that's
when you
the
have
key.
Kids, that's the key. It's all about soundproofing. So cars are probably your car is your probably single most soundproofed object that you own, believe it or not. So
except for the cone of silence from the original Get Smart, and now you're gonna have to Google that because it's quite hilarious. Look up the cone of silence in the original Get Smart from the 1960s.
You're going to have an entire to-do list of things to Google by the time you're done with this podcast.
It's hilarious.
For
soundproofing, I'm building a little home studio in my basement. Not like TJ Gamble. I'm not going to gamble hundreds of thousands of dollars on my sound studio.
First of all, nobody does anything quite like TJ Gamble.
Yeah, nobody can compete against that. I'm going to spend 2% of my budget, like that, as compared to his 100%. He's going to be the United States military infrastructure, and I'm going to be like Ireland for budgeting towards my studio. But this morning I was recording, and I got everything all set up very nicely. Made the mistake of leaving the door upstairs open, and we have a new Jack Russell. So the next thing I know is Susan's running down the stairs, turns the corner, and all I hear is, "No!" And this little puppy's found the basement, and we have carpeting, and has discovered that, hey, this carpet is just like grass. So if you listen to my podcast today with Yissa Rietsma, there will be a person yelling in the background that only comes in for a second, and I will give a Starbucks gift card if you can pick out that exact time. $5 Starbucks gift card. If you could pick out if you give me the time signature on that.
Very cool.
Yeah,
well,
big
if
spender.
the link is up, I literally will stop our podcast right now and just go find that.
I recorded that early this morning and I published it already.
And it's up. Okay, because I mean, honestly, I'd rather just get the gift certificate. I mean, as much as I enjoy chatting,
for you, I would
could
send
really
it anyways.
use. Okay, well, I'm gonna hold you to that. Because I really need these are tough times, and I could use a gift card
as you sit in your
coffee.
Tesla Model S that you probably got hand delivered from Elon Musk.
Well, we do hang out from time to time.
Yeah,
he's a good guy. Are you pro Elon Musk or anti?
I'm pro.
Musk? This is my.
Do you not read?
Okay.
Do you not look at your social media?
I read. No, I read.
Yeah.
I read. I mean, I read a lot of stuff. I read the New York Times cover to cover every morning.
I don't.
No, I don't.
Nice.
Either. I don't either.
Sit there with your cigar, or your cigarette at the kitchen table, drinking your coffee, reading the New York Times.
100%. Sitting in my easy chair. That's how it should be.
Yep. In your pajamas before 11 when you have to get up, when you have to actually go and think about doing your sabbatical and not working.
It's tough, man.
Yeah.
So what did you talk to Yissi about today, man? I saw his post on the open source situation. I agreed with a lot of it. I was happy that he said a lot of the stuff he said.
Yeah, so
what
did
you guys rant about?
We tried to dig into what is the issue here. And it's really not. It's not about forking or not forking, right? And I didn't make the joke about my neighbor as I was growing up. I grew up in Golden Valley, Minnesota, and my neighbor had had like a '32 Cadillac, this giant car, and he got personalized license plates on the car that said 4Q2.
Nice.
And I'm sure it had nothing to do with forking a GitHub repository or any sort of repository, because it was like,
you never know.
This is in the late 70s. Anyways,
I mean, maybe Willem is 74 years old and he just is aged very well.
He carries it very well. Anyway, so I don't think that this is the issue here is not about forking or not forking. The issue is about transparency and communication from Adobe.
Right.
And the second issue then is about the Magento Association and how much can they share, how much control do they have, and what do people think they can do?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's all. There's this kind of, it's all kind of bundled together, and it's weird. Like I feel, like even talking to you, right? You're an Adobe partner, right?
Correct.
I assume. Unless you've gotten pulled from the partner program for making tons of horrible dad jokes, which I assume could happen at any point. But
getting close, yeah. Really close.
When people are in the partner program, they can't necessarily just, throw out whatever ideas or whatever thoughts they might have. So I'm always kind of tiptoeing, like, you know what I mean? Like I feel like when I watch the panel and it feels like people are tiptoeing and tiptoeing and tiptoeing, and it's like, I don't even want to ask you too many questions about it because I don't want to get anybody in trouble. Nobody wants to get in trouble. You know what I mean? Like, So, which I think is part of the issue. I think is part of the challenge is that everybody's just so,
Yeah, but what is the issue here? I think the issue is pretty clear and they stated it, right? So I'll quote again. This makes for a lot of unknown variables. There is no public roadmap for Magento open source, and this has left a lot of the community who believe in the monolith is a valid approach to many cases, feeling uneasy about the future of Magento.
Right.
So I think and I don't think it's about forking or not forking. It's not really about monolith or splitting up into microservices. It really is about helping people understand where the open source of Magento is going.
Right. And I just feel like I'm a little bit further from the details these days as far as what exactly they're introducing with the microservices and how that's differing from the traditional kind of monolith. I bundled together lots of different things under this category of like community unrest, like the people that have been complaining about contributing, the people that have posted an issue to GitHub and they get no response, and then 90 days later the issue gets auto closed, right? Or Jacob Winkler has posted a lot about stuff he's contributed and it just sits there. I talked to Damian Retzinger about that yesterday. Lukash, what's his face, that he's going to get mad at me for that had similar issues. It's just like there's all this stuff where there's all this energy of the community. Like Vinay said something to me. He said like there's this energy, and if it's not sort of harnessed, it gets frustrated. And that's what I see from like the 20,000 foot view, is like there's people waiting around on PRs. There's people waiting around for architectural direction. There's just all this, and we're just like, hey, let's start a dialogue with Adobe. What does that even mean? Start a dialogue? I want to see people just do stuff, like Willem came out with Hoova and everybody loves it. He reinvented the front end. Everybody loves it, right? He's doing stuff. He's actually making stuff happen independently. I feel like that's kind of the spirit. I'm on a rant here, huh? I'm on a full on rant. Anyways, I feel like that's kind of the spirit of Magento, is that we just go out and we do stuff, whether that's in the form of a module that we create and contribute or whatever. We just do stuff and we don't sit around waiting for approval from anybody. And I feel like we've just been sitting around waiting for approvals, Now, that's just I could be completely wrong about that because I'm not very on the ground connected to all this stuff.
Yeah, I think you're very correct in saying that people are sitting around waiting for fixes to get put in, and I think that that Adobe has definitely missed the boat in terms of making sure that from the community side they're keeping up with what's happening on those pull requests and those fixes, because they are missing out on a huge amount of potential bugs that are in the code already and that are getting fixed, and it's thousands of coders that are out there helping that. So that's one issue. The other issue that you brought up is, what is the roadmap of Magento? I think there's sort of a roadmap for the commerce version of it, but it's not. It hasn't been published since, say, 2019, since the last time we had a live conference. I don't know if they've actually put out at any like Meet Magento India or any like this Meet Magento Poland. Did anybody from Adobe show up for the virtual part of it? I haven't seen the whole conference yet. But
yeah, I don't know. I just know they said that they had a travel restriction. So as far as actually going, nobody actually went there in person. Yeah.
So that's that. I mean, I think just helping us to understand where we're going. The last time I saw Anton Krill before he left Magento, he gave a speech at Meet Magento Germany about Magento moving to isolated services.
Right.
And I'm okay with that. And the reason is you can still put those isolated services together as a monolith and deploy it. Now, Yissa and I had the conversation this morning about, does that mean you're going to have to use something like GPRS or some, he had a technical term that I've already forgotten. They're like a GraphQL type of interface that's internal, like binds those services together. And is that going to be slower than not binding them together? I don't know. I don't care, because if it isn't, Adobe's probably going to fix it. So is the monolith really an issue or not? I don't know. I think what the issue is like what they've done with search. They've deprecated a MySQL search in favor of Elasticsearch without giving the option of having just a regular MySQL search. And geez, I know that everybody loves MySQL search. They love the fact that as you search for anything, you bring everything up in the database.
Yeah.
What could be better than if you had 1,000 things and no matter what you search for, you always get 1,000 results?
Yeah.
See, I'm being sarcastic now. You're not even laughing.
I didn't even catch that because all I was thinking about was going into my next rant.
So what you're saying is, what I hear you saying now is you're not actually listening to me. You're just thinking about what you're going to say next.
I did make that mistake, but let me take a step back. And what you said was there's 1,000 things in the database, and every search query returns you 1,000. So you're saying MySQL is horrendous for search, is what you're trying to say.
It sucks, but at least it works to some degree, and it gives somebody that basic option if they want to. The issue is making it as little. Like, you want to make sure that the complication on the infrastructure side is low, so it's easy entry, right? We don't want it to be super complicated that people don't want to use it, or it's something that's only for big enterprise companies to use.
Right. I heard that sort of said so many different ways by Willem and others on the panel. It's like, hey, keeping things simple, so that people can get into it simply, so that it's not this super overcomplicated thing to work with. Of course, on the higher end, things are always going to get more complicated for different types of more complex projects. But if you can just keep things simple and easy to use, there's so much power in that. I can't give a technical argument for Elasticsearch versus MySQL. I sort of, I kind of follow the community. I see if people are upset and disgruntled, and then that's what I kind of pay attention to these days. And again, I think Hoover is this huge precedent where I know it's only a front end. I know it's not all of Magento, but a significant chunk of Magento was reimagined in a very simple way, right? Like less JavaScript, less complexity, and it's been successful. And people love working with it. And it works in the real world, in production. This isn't like the rantings of somebody that hasn't actually done anything in the real world. So I feel like it's taking that same approach. Like they were talking about how you can't compete in Magento with SaaS offerings. You can't do anything for $10,000. You can't do anything at all in these lower price ranges. And they were saying, now with Hoover, they're able to compete at some of these lower price targets in Europe and different markets, which for them is a win, and it just opens up, that's what our roots are in the Magento community. I mean, I'm preaching to the choir here, literally, because you sing in your choir. And do you still sing in your choir, by the way?
I am signed up to play piano at church in
That's
October.
Right.
Yes.
That's right.
First time in a year.
Oh, nice.
Yep.
That's cool. So anyways, I don't know, man. It's proof will be in the pudding. That's another thing that Vinay said on the panel, which I really enjoyed. It was very interesting. So
I think that I think that Willem has started something that has been lacking in our community. If we look back at what happened when eBay bought Magento, it took about 3 years for them to realize that there is a strong underpinning of public sentiment that involved around Magento, and there was a number of people that got invited to the Imagine conference, and they sort of reinvigorated the community. And then I think the next year they sold it. So when I think when Mark Lavelle took over, then there was this recommitment to the community. I'm interested in learning from people that were involved in, say, AEM, Apache Sling, or one of the other open source platforms that they have, what that community looks like. And I know it's a different type of community. I think AEM's on Java, and it's a little bit more mature maybe than Magento, but it'd be interesting to see what's happened to those people, and does Adobe still listen to them?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think I want to say Cordova or PhoneGap or one of those was also one of the bigger open source projects that had been acquired, and I was always curious about the same thing. You know, how have things gone with some of these other open source communities? But I don't know. I think probably the fact that we don't already know, like, there isn't like a Drupal community out there. There isn't a Typo 3 community out there.
Well, there is a Drupal community.
No, I know, but I'm saying under Adobe.
Oh, right. Okay.
There aren't one of these kind of bigger open source communities that you think of immediately. So, yes, I mean, I don't really know. And then, of course, you know, more and more people are leaving every day, right? Like Matt Acey was there for a while, and he was rah open source, and then he was gone. And Ben Marks, of course, is now at Shopware, right?
Not at Spryker.
I was going to say Spryker. Guido moved to Spryker, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, there's just this, like, you know, a lot of people, like Anton's at WordPress, at WP Engine, right? Piotr is at, WP Engine?
I thought he's at BigCommerce. Yeah.
First it was WP Engine, then BigCommerce, right? So it's like, I mean,
yeah, I think that, you know, when they get so large that those people are going to come and go, and that's the reality of what it is. And, you know, I think the key point there is that the community can't be made up of any one person or group of people at Adobe/Magento. And the community never was made up of core people at Magento. The community was made up of our community. And if we look all the way back to that first Imagine conference, it was, you know, a whole bunch of people from all over the world that made up that community.
Mm-hmm.
Germans and French people and a few Americans.
Yeah.
That kind of that started there, or at least were some of the core people in that community, and then that's just continued to change and grow and ebb and flow, and people come and go and join and leave and are interested and not interested. But I think that's the key part of it, and that's where Willem and Vinay and the team at Hoofa have tapped into. And now this open letter now has spurred something that is causing people to at least raise their eyebrows, wake up, you know, and take some notice, and something's happening.
Yeah. I mean, I'm even feeling re-energized, you know, and I, you know, I've got other stuff I'm starting to focus on. I always feel guilty that I don't do more for the association and different things like that. And, you know, my interests have drifted, you know, as like a lot of people's do. But yeah, this whole thing has kind of got me all excited and bothered, you know, and got me, you know, thinking about things and kind of thinking back to, like, what is that original Magento community spirit that's somehow being expressed here. You know, a little bit of a rebellious spirit, or at least kind of an independent, you know. There's a real independent streak in the Magento community. You know?
Yeah, and I think you know, Yoav and Roy and Bob were all very independent-minded people who promoted that culture in our community. And really, the key was that they promoted innovation that happened in it. And I think the one thing that we are sorely missing in Magento specifically is that drive from leadership, and I'll just say leadership is at the Adobe level here, that drive to innovate and have the community innovate. And the frustrations that you mentioned earlier around around not getting pull requests done, if you can't get a pull request done and looked at for an error, what is your chances of getting a pull request for something that is contributing, that is actually innovative to Magento rather than just fixing something?
Right. Yeah, totally. And I don't know. I don't know what the realities are on the ground. I'm sure that they've got a tough workload. It's probably hard to manage all these issues and things that are coming in. There's probably a lot of noise coming in. So it's probably a hard, tricky thing to solve, but I don't know. I just feel like if the community sort of just did their own fork, I kind of just feel like it would just, I want to believe that it would work better. And maybe that's naive, maybe at this scale that's completely naive. I don't know. But I'm like, let's do it. Let's see what this thing would be,
Yeah, I'm not convinced on forking yet. I would like to have Adobe energized a little bit more internally to kind of see some value in what the community can do. And I know that there's an answer for whatever is out there to fix. And I think, the reality too is that what I don't remember what year they started publishing the code on GitHub. It wasn't that long ago that we couldn't even contribute to bug fixes, that you had to email somebody and email your patch, and hopefully it got looked at. It's relatively new that we could actually we could do a pull request, and we could offer that as a fix. I think that they just need to pay some attention to it. And, just really what it comes back down to, though, is just communication and transparency. And if they were to come out and say, hey, we don't have enough people to do this, we don't have enough people to actually look at all these bugs that you're putting in.
Right. Like, people have asked, like, okay, what exactly is the association's role with open source? Is the association doing events only? Are they going to be somehow, in charge of open source? And then, like, I think it was said in the panel yesterday that, like, a dialogue was started with Adobe on the topic, right? What exactly does that mean, that a dialogue was started? Like you're saying, transparency. Like, okay, who's the person that is in charge of this? When, when was the issue raised? How much time has passed? When are we going to get an answer? So I guess I think you're right from that perspective. Is like, if we could get transparency, that would be great. And I don't think anybody there is like a bad guy. Like, I just think, I don't know, they probably have their own internal meetings and internal policies, and they're just doing their job, But something is amiss. Something's not aligned. So, like, how can we, I don't know, Yeah,
you're going to love my next analogy. So if we were to look at the Magento Association as being sort of this socialistic type entity that has to do everything as a collective, and it doesn't want to upset the masses, so everything is very vanilla and even keel. And if you were to stand, there's no room for dissenters or people to stand up and say, hey, we got to move faster. There's no room for anything to happen quickly, because it has to go through so many processes, and it has to go through X, Y, and Z. And that's just not going to happen. So, I don't know if that's going to get any better, and I don't know why it would be any better in this Magento Mage Open Source Community Alliance. They were able to make that letter happen quickly because they only involved the people that were there, right? So if we were to say, and I didn't know, apparently that letter was floating around for a week. It was seen by a few people, which I can understand. But if you were now to say, okay, I want to have everybody see it. Okay, well, now everybody's going to have a different opinion, and suddenly you get mired down in a whole bunch of not so good.
A whole bunch of malarkey.
Malarkey, that's a great word. Thank you for that. And that malarkey then just keeps our feet stuck, and we can't move because we're waiting to get out of this malarkey. Where if you're smaller and more agile, you can make those decisions quickly and go forward. It's kind of like It's kind of like as a leader, you need to make those decisions. You have to do it sometimes unilaterally because you need to make them quickly. And as as somebody that is an entrepreneur, then that is part of the culture. But if you're looking at something where it's a bigger organization like Adobe or like Smith Buckland, and you have to follow a whole set of rules, and you have to go through every single step and hoop, and there is no room for pushing the envelope, because what we do, I guess what we really need here is Elon Musk.
That's what
he would save. He would save Magento open source.
I mean, I think Willem is the Elon Musk. Which I think that you need. I'm a big believer in what individuals can do. Right, like you threw out the analogy of socialism or kind of collectivism, which is kind of contrasted against kind of individual, what an individual or a small group of individuals can do, right? I mean, think of Laravel, started by one guy, Taylor Otwell, and it's this huge ecosystem that's grown, but he's continued as the kind of BDFL, the sort of benevolent dictator for life, and it's doing great, right? It's thriving, whereas Magento is kind of stagnated in some ways. And anyway, I just think that, and I know he probably hates it every time I sort of make a big deal out of him individually, because he's trying to build a team and kind of, I think, catalyze kind of a broader movement, but yeah, man. I mean, I think one person can build something, incredible. It's like the Mythical Man Month. I'm sure Adobe's throwing tons of resources at various things. I'm sure if you looked at their burn charts and their budgets, they would be significant. But that doesn't always mean that, things are getting done. And I know that people on the association have put in a ton of effort, a ton of time, a ton of blood, sweat, and tears. I just, that doesn't always guarantee results, right? Sometimes one person or a small group of people can get stuff done super fast, right? On a shoestring budget. Whereas the bigger incumbent, right, can spend a lot of money and not really, and a lot of time and not really kind of go as fast,
Yeah, no, I think you hit it there, and there's two sides to that whole thing about collectivism. There is a broad community that can support a dream of somebody, and that broad community, it can come together in the terms of Magento and fix a whole bunch of bugs, right? But what that broad community can't do as a community is always agree on what is the next best thing what is the next big thing that we should do for our community to move us forward. Because you are always going to have somebody that is more, I'll use the word conservative and liberal, not in the political sense, but just if you think about it, some people in our community would like it to stay the way it has been, and some people would like to grow into new things. And there's new people coming to the community that don't care about what happened in Magento 1. They're involved in Magento 2, and they would like to see that. So there's all kinds of opposing views that are happening. So the two sides are the broad community helps support it and maintain it, and make sure that we're growing in a flat sense. We're growing, but it's really just maintaining something. Then there's the little people that are poking things at it, that are lighting fires here and there, like the Hoofa theme.
Right.
And those people are the ones that are sticking out, that are making things happen.
Right. Yeah.
So, in terms of the Mosca, MOSCA. In terms of
Magento
Mosca,
Open Source Community
Alliance.
What is it? Alliance.
Right.
Alliance.
So, what does that mean? Okay, are they all going to? What if there is a bunch of people that would like to go with isolated services instead of microservices, and I would like my catalog to be able to be deployed differently than my customer group or whatever that is. or my search, or however you want to deploy things, because it'll make my solution a little easier, because I don't change anything but my catalog, and I need to scale my catalog. So I only want to scale that part of it, or whatever that piece is. Maybe there's some people that want that. And I think that the idea that between PWA and Hoofa, a bolted on theme versus a PWA theme, that's just the beginning of making it more complicated. And does it make it so much more complicated that people aren't going to use it?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the $1 million question. Like, I don't know, I mean, I did some stuff with like Laravel, which bundles all sorts of modern JavaScript stuff that I wasn't familiar with, Webpack and all sorts of stuff that I just was not at all familiar with. And it mostly just worked right out of the box because they had it configured and packaged in a way that it was easy to get up and running, and kind of onboarded me into this tool set. And my sense is that it's sort of the exact opposite case with a lot of the Magento stuff, where it's like, things just take a long time to get going, and the complexity is slowing everybody down. So I don't know. I mean, you would know better than I would, what the pros and cons are to the isolated services. It just seems like there's this contingent that is saying, let's keep it simple, which makes sense to me. Keep it simple, stupid. And I don't know. It seems like the Enterprise Commerce Edition, whatever the heck it's being called these days, I still call it Enterprise, is kind of Adobe Commerce Enterprise Edition is going to be like a different thing. It just feels like it's going to be an entirely different thing from whatever Magento is now. I mean, why not just have it become an entirely different thing written in Java microservices? I mean, I'm hearing that it's going to be getting rewritten in Java or something like that. I don't know where I heard that from, but
well, you're in Austin, so you should know. I
should know these things. I hear things.
Where you should be hanging out at the coffee shops where all the Adobe employees hang out, and you should be overhearing their conversations.
Well, maybe that's what I do. Maybe that's where this is coming from.
Okay, good.
You never know. You never know. But maybe they should just be completely different things. I mean, just let the open source Magento crazies let us do our thing with our little SMB market. And let the upmarket, Adobe Commerce guys go nuts. Go absolutely nuts with your architecture. Rewrite it in Java. Rewrite it in Golang. Whatever you want to do. You know what I'm saying? Maybe that's the answer.
I think the key here is still the underlying issue that is still there is just the lack of transparency and communication from Adobe.
Right.
That's all. I mean, what you've just said, it would solve everybody's problem. Because if they did that, then sure, people would fork it, and we'd be off to the races with Magento 2 open source. And the Magento or Adobe Commerce then would become its own little beast that would live on through the Adobe world.
Right.
I don't know if Adobe would want to do that, because I think they've also left Apache Sling there, which is the underpinning of Experience Manager, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
I actually had a conversation with Damian Retzinger yesterday. I don't know if you know him, but he's a cool guy, and he it's not live yet, but he was saying something really interesting, which is that Magento is kind of like open source, but not exactly, in the sense that a lot of these architectural decisions, right? Like I heard from, I think, one or two different people the thing about Java, okay? Not going to say who, because again, that's kind of the nature of this beast, is that it's like a guy and you have a conversation with some person, but it's off the record because they're not supposed to, right? And this is sort of exactly how open source is not supposed to work. Everything should be discussed out in the open. It should all be discussed on GitHub. Whoever was talking about rewriting it in Java, if they were in fact, that should just be, discussed openly, right? Like, but there's all these backroom conversations, right? There's the partner ecosystem. There's always these backroom conversations. And part of that is, there's a closer relationship between partners, and that can be a good thing. That can be a feature, not a bug. But it's also just kind of, it's kind of wacky, the whole thing.
But that's back to somebody's got to make a decision.
Right.
At some point, the decisions, the moving forward decisions have to be made, and they shouldn't involve every single person in the whole world. There's going to have to be a group of leaders that do that, and they're going to have to make that decision and then live with that decision.
You could be right.
That's what leadership is.
That's what leadership is. That's what leadership is, and in business, that's how sort of business works. You've been a business owner for many years, and you've had to make those types of decisions and stuff. I think, and certainly, if you just ask for everyone's opinion and do what everybody wants you to do, I think that's the wrong approach too. So I don't know, man. I don't have any answers.
Let's talk about this, right? I've seen more now about people saying this is splintering our community.
Okay.
How many times have we heard that in the last 10 years? That this is splintering our community.
I don't know. What are you thinking? What other things are you thinking about that were described?
We've heard that over and
splintering?
over again, that the community is breaking up and this is the end. And I think you remember in 2014 at Meet Magento New York, Kurt from Classy
there's no
Llama.
nucleus, or there's no center of gravity.
Right. He had
Right?
that big speech. And Karen Baker did the same thing about how our community's falling apart. And, I think those are the times where maybe it is splintering, and having those people stand up and talk about it brings us together again. So, but is it splintering?
Yeah.
Yes, of course. It's always splintering. People are going off in their own directions. And so
it's been in a process of continual splintering for 12 years.
But really, like, what is it that you're saying if it's splintering, and where would you like it to go? Because we just talked about the collective wants to be this community, right? But the people like Willem are pushing the boundaries to make something new happen. And we all agree that what he was doing is good, right? But other people are saying that we should split Magento into small pieces. Some people agree with that. Some people don't. That's splintering the community, right? Everybody's not going to have the exact same opinion about everything. So what does splintering the community mean?
Yeah, I think I go back to Laravel because that's the closest analog I have. You've got one leader, Taylor Otwell, who is incredible. Every year he reads the entire code base line by line. That's how committed this dude is. Everybody respects him as a lot of open source projects need to have a leader, right? A BDFL. And Linus Torvalds, right? You think of these people, and or companies need a founder. You have a founder that's led the company from day one, and I feel like that is kind of an important thing. We don't have that right now, although I think maybe that's Willem. That's my campaign, Willem for BDFL, but I don't know. Yes, this could splinter things, I guess. I think organically, if it was successful, it would start to pick up steam, and then maybe people that were not as interested in it would start to find a use case for it, right? What about commerce and open source? Is that a splintering? Is that a splintering of the community?
Commerce and open source is just a name, and that's been around forever. I think Magento Enterprise came out in 2010.
Yeah.
And, the reality is that Magento has to make money, so they have to pay the bills.
Yeah. Money is good. Money is important. But I guess I think the point you raise is interesting to me. Is like everybody's always saying that everything is splintering the community. And the argument the association is making is, listen, guys, we have been working for 3 years now to create this association, to put some structure in place, to foster dialogues, and you guys are trying to blow it all up. And you guys are saying, oh, we're just going to do our own thing. And they're saying, we want you to work with us, right, as the association, to communicate these things in a clear way to Adobe. And I feel, and like, I get that, but at the same time, it's like there's so much pent up frustration and angst in the community, and it's just like it's sort of spontaneously combusting. I feel like in some ways.
But doesn't it feel like that's what's happening every time this happens?
What do you mean?
I mean, it feels like the things are falling apart when this happens. You know, when it felt like when eBay bought Magento and they had that conference, X-Commerce conference, and then the next year it wasn't the Magento Imagine conference; it was just Imagine. Like Magento came out of it completely, right?
Right.
For Magento was removed completely from the verbiage in the conversation. It felt like it that was worse than it is now in some sense,
right?
Because it felt like it was getting sucked into some behemoth like eBay, and we're never going to get it back.
I think that the corporate overlords, they keep trying to sort of absorb Magento, and then it just doesn't. It just can't happen. Like I said, man, the community is rebellious. We like to do our own thing. We have our own hive mind. We're gonna keep fighting. We're gonna keep forking. It's gonna keep happening.
Yep. Think about these business leaders that are making these decisions that don't give rats whatever about Magento. They bought Magento in the sense that they needed they wanted a commerce platform to go into the broader portfolio for Adobe.
Right.
And what they could have chose some other platform that's a SaaS platform. They could have chose something like BigCommerce or whatever's out there. They chose a Magento, and it's a PHP platform. I'm just putting out my guesses here. I'm guessing they didn't think about, hey, this is PHP and none of the other products on Adobe are PHP. Right? They didn't think of any of that. I'm sure they looked at a bunch of factors that made it, from a business standpoint, made it make sense. And then the next thing after that, you have a whole bunch of managers that make decisions that, again, don't necessarily align with where Magento was. They just are looking at where they would like it to be, not necessarily thinking about how it got there and how it's going to get maintained in terms of, hey, we have 300,000 people that care about it. Are we going to upset them if we start doing this, or are they going to feel shut out when we stop talking altogether?
Mm-hmm. What do you mean when we stop talking altogether?
Well, if we look at this as being a communications problem, and the communication is just they're not telling us what's going to be happening in the future with Magento, they're really in a sense not really telling us where it's going, right? We don't know necessarily where it's going. Mm-hmm. And that is a concern that the community has, because people would like to know where it's going. And even more than, I think people want to be included in that. They want to feel, if it's a community, you want to feel like you're included in the community. Mm-hmm. And if you don't know what's happening and the decisions are being made and you don't even know what's going to be happening, that you feel incredibly left out of the community.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that may be it. That may be the issue at hand. I don't know. I just miss Ben Marks. You know.
Well, we can do our next episode on shopware.
Well, I don't know the first thing about shopware, other than I think it's the next Magento. But, they seem to have some strong grassroots growth.
As long as you get the Germans involved, and then the Dutch and the Germans, that's all we need.
That's a powerhouse. Are the Dutch getting into shopware? Is that?
I'm sure they are. Look at all the people on Hoofa, and they're going to be in shopware, definitely.
Oh, are they going to be in shopware? Is that happening?
I don't know. I'm just speculating. I'm making stuff up.
Oh, okay. Yeah. No,
it's fake news.
Fake news. Fake news. Yeah, no, it's crazy. But yes, I do. I just miss Ben. That's all I wanted to say. That's really all there is to say at this point.
Well, why don't we
need you, Ben? Come back to us. What have you done? You've left us orphaned like orphaned children in our time of need. And we need you back here.
Let's do an interview with Ben.
It's a great idea.
Are you drinking Diet Coke? Is that a whole thing full of Diet Coke you got going there?
This is rum, but
okay, that's a big thing of rum.
Nice. Because Diet Coke isn't very good for you. So
okay, so you just do a Diet Coke and rum, leave out the Diet Coke,
more or less.
No ice, just dump the rum.
Actually, there's actually a ton of ice. I'm surprised you can't hear all the ice in here. There's
your microphone is very good, pointed right at your mouth.
It is good. I would love to talk to Ben. I've thought about that a lot. I just feel like he probably can't talk much. It goes back to the same thing I opened up our conversation with. He probably can't talk about much. I'd imagine he probably doesn't want to go rant about every internal problem there was. He's left Magento. So I would love nothing more than to pick his brain for 5 hours straight. But I can't imagine he wants to talk about that stuff publicly, maybe privately, and then I'll just record it on the down low and publish it.
Yeah, you stick your phone on record in your pocket. So it'll just be like, you said what? I've heard it. Oh my gosh, I can't believe that, Ben. Really? That really happened? See, there you go. We could do the interview ourselves, and we could just pretend.
Yeah, that's the other option. We could just do a mock interview. You be Ben Marks. You do an amazing muffled Ben Marks, I will say. And,
absolutely.
And I'll be me.
Practice.
Yeah.
Good.
We could probably do a pretty solid job.
Absolutely.
Yes. Well, I think we've solved everything, personally. I mean, all they need to do, we
burned through 53 minutes of solving.
All they need to do is hit play on this bad boy and listen to everything we say, do everything we say, and it's all solved. It's done.
Yep. Shantanu is who we're sending it to, right?
100%. Yeah, we're going to hand deliver this to him on his doorstep in a thumb drive.
Yeah. I heard that Laravel was named after a guy named Larry Vell. Did you hear that?
I did not.
Veil. And if it would have been Larry Vile, like Vail, Colorado, otherwise. But now it's Larry Vell, and they just shortened it. Did you hear that same rumor? Like his neighbor's name was Larry Vell.
Please tell me you're not serious. Are you serious?
No.
Hey, how did you get me? I was like, the very last minute, I was like, oh my God, he's serious.
Yeah, we made it through this whole episode without any jokes.
Oh, God. You are literally the most deadpan dad joker on the planet.
I've been told that.
Just when I think I have you figured out, you throw me for a loop, you know?
Speaking of so a couple things as we close out. If Willem is our Elon Musk, it is going to be infinitely less expensive for him to shoot the Hoofa theme into space than it was for Elon to shoot his first Tesla into space, right?
Right.
He only has to strap on I guess you would probably want to put it on a thumb drive of some sort, the code, and then shoot it up. And we could even shoot it up on a small rocket. It doesn't have to be a regular rocket.
Well, yes. That said, I'm pretty sure any kind of a rocket, even one that's only big enough to carry a thumb drive, is not cheap.
Yeah. All right.
You know.
So somebody's going to have to fund that for Willem. So we could do 100%. A GoFundMe page. Or we could just see if we could get it in on one of Elon Musk's SpaceX rockets. Let's be cheaper.
That. I'll have a chat with him next time I see him down at the Comedy Club.
I do have a Tesla joke for you as we close it out.
Good Lord!
I just figured out why Teslas are so expensive.
Okay.
Because they charge a lot. You're welcome.
Oh, God. Thank you. Did you do that? Did you come up with that one yourself?
I don't come up with any of my jokes myself.
You don't come up with any of them.
No.
But you deliver them like an absolute champion.
Yeah. That's the only... I don't even know if that's my talent.
Well...
I don't think it is.
No, I wouldn't.
I do come up with spontaneous jokes, and I do have to explain them. I think that's the best part of it.
It is the best part.
My best joke... My best joke when I'm running, I know we're over now, but
no.
I do my long runs, and oftentimes I'm with a new group of people and we're doing 20 miles or something like that.
Right.
I wait until mile 18, and my advice is always running is 90% mental,
right,
and the last 15% is in your head. And I leave it at that, and we just keep going. And then if they're paying attention at all what I say, they will question my math. But a lot of times they're not at the point where they could think straight. So
they don't catch it, kind of like I didn't catch your MySQL joke. They just kind of go like, yeah, that's good. That's good. Good inspiration.
Right.
I love it. Ladies and gentlemen, Brent Peterson, all done here. We're wrapping it up. Over and out.
Cheers.